Welcome to the show, everybody. Thank you for downloading. My name is Pete Wright, and I'm here with Megan Strand.
I got to be first today?
You do.
Hi.
And Dane Christensen second.
Peace in.
Peace in. And we are The Naked Marketers at www.thenakedmarketers.com. And you can choose whether or not to use the www. That's up to you, to your internet comfort
That's
level.
the kind of freedom we as Americans enjoy.
Right. We do. We have a good show for you today. It's we have a guest who was scheduled to be on the show in our first, second or third week, and had to cancel on us. And he's back on the show. Brian Kurth, founder of vocationvacations.com. He's a terrific guy, a wonderful entrepreneur, and has a lot of great things to say about how he built this really unique business, and how he gets the word out to the world. So we're very much looking forward to a conversation with Brian a little bit later. But first, we have stuff on the brain. What's first on the brain, Megan?
Oh, I don't think I'm first. I think you're first. With YouTube.
That's not a very good handoff, though. If I'm handing it back to myself, it's more of a boomerang.
And let me go ahead and go first.
Yeah. So especially as I was only ready for the handoff, up and to the handoff. But the story is actually an interesting one. YouTube wins the case against Viacom. And we talked about this Digital Millennium Copyright Act case. Viacom was suing YouTube for violating their copyright and hosting Viacom copyrighted material on YouTube. And the story we talked about early on was that, there was evidence presented that, in fact, Viacom was secretly posting their own content onto YouTube.
Which they still think was perfectly acceptable behavior.
Right. And then they would go and submit these DMCA takedown notices to have YouTube remove the video content from their website. Well, the court granted a summary judgment for Viacom's lawsuit with Google.
A 30-pager, by the way.
Yeah, it was a big one. They had a lot of words in order to define what this meant. What it really means is that YouTube is safe. They are safe under the safe harbor of the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, as long as I think the nuts and bolts of it all sort of boils down to this. As long as YouTube continues to work with copyright owners when a DMCA takedown notice is presented, and they take down the material quickly,
which they've been shown to do.
They have been shown to do. They are considered safe, and they are considered just a neutral third-party host, just like an ISP. They're not liable for the content that is on their service unless they show that they are proactively hosting copyrighted material, and they show that they are not. And they're investing heavily in technologies that exists on YouTube to algorithmically hunt down copyrighted material, songs that play, video clips that play that are.
Oh, they do it quick.
They do it so fast. They do it really, really fast.
I think, wasn't it, Pete? I mean, would you say that maybe a year ago you post a video on YouTube with a copyrighted song, and it might have taken a week or more before YouTube it ran the algorithm and flagged it. And I honestly, man, I posted something the other day, and it seems to me like an hour, I got the little the notice I got was this is a copyrighted song, and basically that's why we're going to run ads on your video.
Well, that's actually that's great. Really, I mean, I think, don't you? I mean, having ads on the video, but still being allowed to have the video on YouTube?
Exactly. Well, it's much better than the other videos I've had where all of a sudden they have no sound whatsoever.
Exactly. It makes it so you don't have to think about it as a content producer. You just get it up there, and YouTube takes care of the business, which is fine.
Exactly.
I'm totally okay with that. What's interesting is I posted a video for a client on a Google Apps hosted video installation, right? If you have Google Apps Premiere, you get essentially your own little internal YouTube. So it's all the Google video goodness, but no one in the world can see it other than employees of the company. And I posted this. It had actually, I didn't even remember, it had a clip from the Office theme song in the video, and that video was just axed on upload. They said this has a copywritten song in it, and so you can't see it. We're not even, because there's no infrastructure to run ads in the Google Apps video implementation.
Interesting.
So you just don't even get it. I think as soon as
Pete, on a future show, can we get in depth about Google Apps Premiere?
Sure.
I'd really love to dig into that one. Future show.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's great. So anyway, good news for YouTube. Actually, I think really great news for people in general. To keep,
absolutely.
Keep Viacom out of.
And when are they just going to scrap the Digital Millennium Copyright Act altogether? I mean, seriously, isn't the premise that digital is so vastly different from analog that it requires a whole different set of laws?
Yeah, but I don't think we're any closer to having that different set of laws.
We're not. We're not.
Copyright is an ugly
just
thing.
kind of kills me.
Yeah.
But anyway.
But that is what it is. What else do we have to talk about? Dane, you've got something, please.
I wanted to talk quickly about something that I'm excited to test tonight. It launched yesterday, and I didn't find out about this until I read the New York Times article from yesterday that NPR has a new music app, and it essentially so it's not a new it's not a whole new branch of NPR. NPR has done, and as the article sort of gets into, NPR has done a fabulous job of being a hub for all kinds of music, all kinds of great music. They have excellent sort of editorial taste that runs through many musical genres. They're a great source of discovering new music. They're also a great vehicle for new and emerging artists. Or artists who's maybe been around a while but it's been 20 years since they released an album, whatever. It's a great place, a great vehicle to get their music discovered. So, it just continues to be interesting to me. Anyway, I hate to keep bringing this up, but that the music industry, in my opinion, takes a really long time to sort of work their way evolving through this digital landscape, right? But NPR has been an excellent place, for people to share music, or you can get downloads. They have all kinds of, and you guys have, probably had lots of experience with. Is it all music considered? I think something like that.
Right. All songs considered.
All songs considered. Yes. Sorry. My brain's not awesome today. Tiny Desk Concert Series. Mm-hmm. Did I get that one right? But anyway, so great place to find music, and now a new app that right off the bat, lots of downloads and just a more and more opportunity every year, really, for NPR to continue to be an important vehicle for music.
Well, and I think it's an interesting commentary that NPR is, as digital as everything has gone, and there was a while there where everybody was saying, National Public Radio is going to struggle in the digital as the NPR kind of national station is competing more and more with affiliates, and I know there's a struggle there, and I know there's a struggle in public radio and in public television in general, but you look at the direction that NPR is going, it's really so progressive, and has become, I think, even more of a staple, certainly in where I get my news. And as popular as the NPR apps are, I have to believe I'm not alone. The NPR news app on the iPad is one of the best news apps I've downloaded. I use it every single day. It's really fantastic, more than I use certainly the web or the radio.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's just interesting and to see how a traditional media outlet is sort of reinventing themselves. So
well, at traditional and yet kind of non-traditional. I mean, NPR has been sort of on the leading edge, bleeding edge, and lagging edge of in so many different areas across the spectrum of communication. So I think it's really great to see what they're doing. They posted on their the app. They've got a ton of Bonnaroo stuff, which I haven't even checked out yet. But looks great.
Right. NPR, by the way, I mean, I think NPR was one of the first, major news outlets to really successfully embrace podcasting.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, you can get just about every one of their shows as a podcast and have been from early on.
Now, as you mentioned, Pete, they're fantastic at streaming. You don't quite have to go the podcast route if you want to go straight to All Things Considered or whatever. The NPR app just makes it a great tool for live streams or day of streams without quite needing to do a full podcast transition. Right. So,
and they also do a great job of handing that back to your local station. I mean, if you're listening to the story, you can listen to it on your station, and that's a great connection to the community. So anyway,
absolutely, fantastic. Very cool. That's a good one, Dane. Good one.
Thanks, guys.
I've got a good one too. Can I talk about my good
Please
one?
talk about yours.
So Harvard Business Review this week came out with an article. It's called "In Marketing, South Beats North," and it's essentially based on some recent research by a couple of guys, one out of UC Berkeley, one out of Yale School of Management, and they did a paper and showed that all of us subconsciously link cardinal direction with vertical position. So north equates to uphill and south equates to downhill. And so what we do subconsciously when we think of north and south in directions is that we think north is harder because it means going uphill, and south is easier because it means going downhill. So the article was talking about implications for marketing. And when you're talking about, maybe your location being north of somewhere, well, you don't really want to say that because it implies, it's harder to get to. You want to say it's south of somewhere because it's, easier. So it's just a really fascinating article. I highly recommend it. We'll put it on the show notes. And, of course, in true HBR style, it gets much more complicated than that. But it does have some pretty interesting implications as far as choosing your word choice when it comes to direction. So it's kind of cool.
It's really fascinating. The picture they have on the article on the website is just North America upside down, and it totally bugs me because it turns all of your assumptions on here.
You're like,
I don't want to spring break necessarily, up in the Gulf of Mexico. I'd rather spring break in Seattle or Calgary.
Well, that is interesting though, because you think of I want to go south with
but that's suddenly not right. Why would I want to go to Calgary at all? No, I love Calgary.
Well, and that's sort of what the article
giant mall there.
Then people get a little confused when you start flipping images that are traditionally seen as
messes me
north oriented.
I'm easy to confuse.
Well, and I like the whole power sort of angle. How we as advanced as we think we are as a civilization, we kind of can't get away from things like, top is more powerful or south is an easier direction to go. I mean, it's not logical, right? There's nothing logical about that, but we can't quite get rid of that sort of, what do they call that in architecture?
This is going to be good. Go ahead. What is it? What is it, Dane?
It is called archetype. Is that right? Archetype. Is that right?
Architecture?
But not in architecture.
Hold on, guy. Okay,
I'm not an architect.
I'm going to do a little bit of research. Talk amongst yourselves. I know there's a word there that has a use in this context.
And there goes Dane for the rest of the show.
I look forward to that. Hey, Dane, what's the opposite of architecture?
Oh,
yeah, that was it. I did it. All right, can I talk now?
Yes.
There's so many.
I want to talk about today as a national holiday. Today is, it's officially June 24th, 2010. And if you didn't know, Apple has released their new iPhone. And on the same day, that's actually not the story, ironically enough. The story is Microsoft opened a new store right next to one of Apple's stores today, which I think is hysterically funny in the fashionable Fashion Valley Mall in San Diego. And Microsoft has a history of doing this, picking the biggest Apple holiday that they can find, and doing their best to suck some of the energy out of it and open the iPhone store or open their Microsoft store. But
it's like Lowe's and Home Depot.
It is. It's hysterical. What's really funny, there are a couple of things that are funny. The image, first of all, shows the banner of the Microsoft store about to be open with lines of people outside who are, I think, actually waiting for their iPhone right next door. But what's more interesting to me is, why do they do this? They've done it before, and why do they keep doing this? From a marketing perspective, somebody give me the justification for wanting to get in on somebody else's day and try to find oxygen in this vacuum. I mean, here we are talking about it, but I think it's a little bit of a isolated. Maybe we are looking at it from a different perspective. Why would you possibly want to jump in on this kind of a media circus?
Because you want to make sure that you're still being talked about and noticed.
Are you being talked about and noticed at all?
We're talking about it.
But we're a marketing show. We're supposed to we're saying it's a foolish thing. It's stupid.
It's
I
just
don't even know what
annoying.
you're talking about because I'm too busy proving
I was
myself
gonna
right over here.
Okay.
But keep going.
Uh-huh. Come on, you know what I mean?
I don't have an
seriously.
explanation for you. I just think it's jerky, and
Do you know
and
who's gonna? You know who's gonna be there? Not an iPhone, but professional skateboarder Rob Dyrdek.
Okay, well that's why you care, because you've got this other weird market that's going to show up. I mean, what is
they're
that?
raffling. They're holding a raffle. You know what they're
Are they going to play
raffling
bingo
off?
too?
Do you know what they're raffling off? A Microsoft Zune, but the Zune isn't good enough, so they're raffling off a flip camera.
You're kidding.
I'm not. I mean, come on.
Pete, the people
That's awesomely hilarious.
the people who are going to jump on this bandwagon, as you're suggesting, are the people who think that all exposure is good exposure, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if anybody caught the Jerry Seinfeld comments about Lady Gaga the other day. Anybody?
No.
I don't know.
Oh, was she about her getting kicked out of all of the?
Well, she was in his box, I guess, at the Mets game or whatever. I don't know. He's like, he called her a jerk. He said she's a jerk, and he said something to the effect of, there are a lot of people that he said, I'm not one of those people that think, all exposure is good exposure. Bad exposure gets you killed. Bad exposure, you can get cancer from bad exposure.
Oh God, that's awful. A correction. I'm looking at the gallery, and it looks like they're actually giving away a bunch of Microsoft shirts, and the people in line. There are people in line for the Microsoft Store grand opening. I find that fascinating.
Are they 18?
Well, actually, they're wearing. I've got some fuzzies.
They've got a different market.
Fuzzy slippers, lots of hoodies.
Seriously?
Oh, there are a lot of hoodies.
Is Zuck there?
Zuck is not there, although I think he uses a Mac.
Do you think there are people? I bet there's somebody in line who has a tattoo of the Windows logo on their arm.
Yeah.
There has to be.
You're probably right. There's a tattoo for everything. Anyway, I just think it's silly why not try to establish your own hot national holiday? Because I just don't think there's as big, particularly when at E3. We talked about E3 last week, but we didn't talk about the Microsoft Connect extravaganza that Cirque du Soleil did, which was huge. I don't know if you guys have seen any clips of this thing.
No. Not at all.
You haven't? Well, there are not very many because it was, Cirque du Soleil, apparently they designed this show. They did it live for the Microsoft launch. It was like the opening ceremonies. It was like that scale, Olympic opening ceremonies big of a production of Cirque du Soleil to illustrate how the new Kinect motion interface for the Xbox worked. And they were throwing people upside down. They had ponchos with light-up shoulder pads that they had everybody wearing that would light up at certain times during the show for audience to use the audience as part of this giant art piece. It's a fascinating thing that they did, and it was really, huge. It was a huge production, and they got to own all of it. Which I think is such a much better model than just trying this retail one-upmanship that I think is just silly. Microsoft has a big enough brand name that they can afford to own their own day.
I really want to spend Microsoft's ad budget one year.
That'd be fun, right?
And you know what? I feel like it's okay that they have such a huge ad budget and spend it on things like circuses. I know Cirque du Soleil is not a circus, but I like to call it that. Because Bill Gates gives away so much money to charity, so I figure that's all right.
Well,
yeah,
I'll give him a pass.
Yeah, all right. Well, okay. So anyway, enough of that. What else do we have?
I want to talk
architectural archetypes. No, not
really.
Look,
Okay,
you guys
go
think
ahead.
I'm crazy. I'm not crazy.
Okay,
Go ahead, Dane.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'll give you an architectural archetype.
Victorian.
Phallic.
Oh,
Buildings.
like skylines or skyscrapers.
Yeah, like in any city in America, generally the most powerful economic force has the tallest building. That's
Okay.
an architectural archetype.
Thank you, Dane.
In Salt Lake City, the LDS Church has the largest building.
Oh, there's a shocker.
And you know what they say about big churches.
So there you go.
Oh,
And
okay.
on to the
We
next
need to
story.
talk about something else.
Yeah. Now, Megan, I know I posted the Electrolux story, but I think you should talk about it.
Oh,
You're the resident greenie.
I don't really consider myself the resident greenie, but
That's funny because the rest of us do.
That's it's because you stereotype and generalize.
I archetype.
You archetype
That's right.
me.
I'm archetyping you. Go ahead.
So apparently, Electrolux, and this is Peter's story that it was on Wired, but the title is Electrolux shows BP how green marketing is done. So, of course, playing off of the oil spill. But apparently, Electrolux is going to be using discarded plastic in the oceans to turn them into vacuum cleaners. So that's at least what I'm getting from it. And he's talking about there being a shortage of recycled plastic, which I happen to know is true. And there is all this plastic floating in the ocean. So they're going to be working with experts and volunteers to dive, fish, and scavenge several concentrated plastic hotspots in the world's oceans, which, if you've seen pictures of this, is just
it's not like
depressing.
finding a bottle in the finding a bottle in a pool. I mean, they're really you could go to certain bays that are just chronically saturated with plastic debris.
Well, yeah. I mean, like literally huge fields of plastic where this plastic converge. I mean, it's really enough to make you sick and not want to ever use plastic ever again. But it's interesting though that Electrolux is coming out with this, because when I was at the Cause Marketing Forum a couple of weeks ago, Pepsi was there and they talked about there being this shortage of recycled plastic. Like they recycle as much as they can, but there is a shortage of recycled plastic. So that's an interesting concept to be, I think it's pretty innovative. But it's just an interesting one.
Vacuum cleaners, it leads to the obvious comparison to BP that Elliot von Buskirk, who wrote this article for Wired, closes it. Electrolux and BP, one sucks, the other blows.
Nice.
Now I'm not making a judgment call.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's a good closer. That's what I got. What do we have? Do we have anything else to talk about on the news?
Can I mention one thing that's maybe more of a tool, but we won't do it as a tool?
Go ahead.
Has anybody had any experience with the new web gaming service OnLive?
I have not tried playing it. I've heard a lot about it. Have you played it at all?
No, I'm kind of dying to, but a little worried about how much time I might lose here in my little office doing this. But there was a great write-up in Slate magazine the other day, Slate Online, about how this actually works and how nobody thought it would work. And everyone thought the latency issues would just be terrible and there was just no way we'd have the bandwidth. And apparently this guy has pulled off quite a feat.
What is the service? First of all, tell people what the service is.
Yeah, so OnLive, and I should have the Slate article pulled up. I've got the website for the service pulled up, but it's essentially online gaming, and what they've done is built this sort of complicated array of servers that handle the processing power for some pretty advanced games like Mass Effect and the latest Splinter Cell. Mm-hmm. You have to have, I think, a 5 megabit minimum to have it work. And everybody doubted that this would work, but it's like $5 a month. They've got an offer for AT&T for a year, or through AT&T for a year, that it would be free. So not a ton of money. And I would, I guess, encourage people to go to Slate. It's still one of their sort of top featured stories, but it does a great write-up about all the doubts going in and how this thing not only seems to be working kind of better than expected, but there might be some real upside to the now that I guess the streaming seems to work okay, and if you've got the right it doesn't work on wireless, but if you've got a good connection at home, you can kind of play it on anything. An old Mac, your Windows machine that is 4 years old. You don't have to have great processing power, just probably want a good screen and a good internet connection. And you have access to these games, and he kind of makes the point, which I think is interesting, that platform consoles were built to be optimized for games and are probably the best hardware you can purchase, for really advanced games, but it's rarely really used. This sort of spreads all that muscle power out there, and may even over time allow them to have games that are maybe more advanced than what you could put on a console, because they're going to have their own servers. And there's, you have to read the article to sort of get into how they've sort of split the computing array to combat, I guess, the latency issue that was sort of their biggest challenge launching it. I think it's like an 80th of a millisecond is where like the human brain says, "Hey, this is no good," latency, and they beat that. So anyway,
Wow.
looks pretty fascinating.
Well, I think it's fascinating, and I probably won't try it because of the time suck that I know it would be. If I had it right here while I was trying to work, that would be a dangerous thing.
Exactly.
Anyway, awesome service, awesome launch. Be interesting to see how that plays out.
Indeed.
Shall we move on?
Bring the smarts.
Let's bring the smarts. I'm so thrilled to have our guest on the show this week, Brian Kurth. Brian is the, I think it's fair to say, right, founder and CEO of Vocation Vacations. How do you define yourself there, Brian?
Yeah, all the above. That's fine.
All right, so we have the founder and CEO, the illustrious and super talented Brian Kurth, on the show. Now, Vocation Vacations, for those who don't know, it's a fantastic and really, I think, unique service that helps you as a grown up figure out what you want to do when you grow up.
Well, it is that. It's really, our client base is a wide range of folks in terms of age, in terms of experience, as well as what they want to get out of the Vocation Vacation Career Mentorship, which lasts between 1 to 3 days. So it's a test drive. In fact, that's what we call it. It's test drive your dream job. It's not the Holy Grail. You're not going to walk away suddenly being an expert TV producer, voiceover artist, or winemaker, but you're going to be able to determine, is this something I want to pursue further? Do I want to go back to school? Do I want to write a business plan? And that's what it's really about, because our clients are, they're not just off the turnip truck. They've got some work experience under their belt. And literally within a couple of days, it offers them that directional, and they're able to take that information and decide, what is my next step? So, yeah, our clients are a wide range of folks. Young as 18, and our oldest person to date has been 80, who was looking at investing into a bed and breakfast with her daughter. And she was looking at long-term investment, even at 80. But most of our vocationers, as we call our clients, are in their 30s, 40s, 50s on the most part. So the Gen X and baby boomers.
And they pay you. Is that, Brian, how it works, Brian? If you want to be a vocationer, you fork over some money, and then you guys find the right sort of fit, I guess.
Well, it's not that we go out and find the fit. We offer the fit.
Okay.
We have a portfolio of nearly 500 mentorship experiences across the United States and 30 states. So when you go to vocationvacations.com, you'll see the full list under the career mentorship section. And so you can click by category. You can go under the Dream Job Search Finder, and you can click by state or what have you, and find what you're looking for. But yes, we do charge. It is not a free service, that's for sure. And it's not for everybody. It's not the cheapest route out there. There are other ways that you can do it, of creating your own career mentorship experience, and that's what my book, Test Drive Your Dream Job, is all about. It's really a do-it-yourself path. But for the folks who are really busy, for the folks who find it very difficult to find a career mentor, which it can be difficult, that's where we provide that service. So a lot of what we offer are in the categories such as culinary and sports and entertainment and fashion and things like that. We don't really focus on the corporate sector per se, because for the most part, most of our clients are in corporate and looking to get out, or they're working for the government and looking to get out. So if you're looking to get that, marketing director job, for instance, we actually don't offer something like that. We don't get many requests for that type of thing.
That makes
a lot of.
And that makes sense, because I was going to ask, how often, or I guess how easy is it for people who utilize your service? Like I look at the past jobs that I've had, and some have been good jobs, but really horrible companies, or a great company, but not such a great job. But if we're not talking about really sort of getting people into corporate positions, you're really looking at people getting engaged in careers where that's probably not so much the case, right? I mean, they're really able to get a hands-on feel for an industry or something really unique, a crafts, sort of a craft, I guess, in some cases, right?
In some cases, it is a craft or a talent that is being honed. But it's not always the case. And, it simply can be a passion. And we encourage our vocationers to come to us regardless of whether or not they have any experience. You can most definitely come to us as a complete novice. You simply need to have passion and curiosity and willingness to learn. That is all you need to bring to the table. And sign the liability release.
Important detail, right?
Exactly.
This is, Dane, I know you have been really looking to make your next move into alpaca ranching.
Well,
you could actually do that.
In Mexico.
This list is.
Dean, you changed your mind from you called me the other day, and I thought it was sword maker.
It was, and that's the problem. It's every other day it's something. I don't know.
Something new.
It's so. I mean, it's hard not to look at this, and my first reaction is this is hysterical. Like the list of things. It's hard not to look at it and think, okay, I could do that. I could become a cheesemonger. I don't even know what that is, but
you
now
could be a cheesemonger.
I want to do it.
You kind of are a cheesemonger, Peter.
But and so once I get over the funniness and I realize, oh my gosh, there are people who do this. I could be one of those. I come back to how did you stumble into this, Brian? How did you realize you wanted to help people become cheesemongers?
Well, I really wanted to be my own client. And it goes back 10 years ago in Chicago. I was working the corporate climb and commuting 2 to 3 hours every day and burning out and making great money and not hating my work but not having passion for it either. And I was just ready for change. And I was thinking about, well, what would I really like to do? And there were 3 things that I wanted to try. Being a dog daycare owner, trainer, being a tour guide, and working in the wine industry in sales and marketing. I figured, well, there's got to be some company out there that provides, an adult like myself. I was 30-something at the time, and the ability to test drive it. And there wasn't. There are tons of internship programs for the 20-year-old, but not something that I was looking for. So I had it in my head and came up with a name, and then still did nothing with it for years. I went into the .com world and went off to make my millions, and of course got my pink slip instead, like so many others, post 9/11. And so the millions did not occur, and so to make a long story as short as possible, I traveled across America for 6 months and talked to people, and I would ask, so I'd meet Pete in the Grand Canyon on a hike, and ask, I would ask him, so all right, he's a marketing person today, but really deep down, Pete always wanted to be a brewmaster. And so I kept a log, kept a journal, and moved to Portland, Oregon, fell in love with it, moved, and went into the wine industry myself for a year. And while working in the wine industry, I started building out vocation vacations. And I had to throw myself at the first set of 10 mentors, all in Oregon, in order to start the business, because I couldn't just create a website without mentors. I needed mentors. Without a website, however, how could I convey the message to these prospective mentors? Well, I was very lucky and talked to amazing people, and all 10 are still on board today. I'm thrilled to say.
Who was your first mentor?
Amity Vineyards, Myron Redford in McMinnville, well, Amity, Oregon,
sure.
Down in the Pinot Noir Valley, and just great guy. Totally got it and said, sign me up. And, he now jokes whenever I'm down there. He said, Brian, you sure have changed in terms of just mentality and appearance. I showed up with my polo shirt and my khakis, and, I'm, at this vineyard and looking, business casual and trying to impress this prospective mentor. And now I just show up and, I'm in shorts and my tennis shoes or whatever. and it's just been a wonderful ride. And that was, that with him signing on board, that was more like 6.5 years ago, but launched the business 6 years ago. And it's been a wild, wonderful ride ever since.
Well,
that's amazing.
That's it is. It's such a fascinating and unique business that you've built. And I think one of the things we wanted to talk about is just how it has developed. You say that the business has developed in a very organic way. What does that mean?
Well, that means that it was completely bootstrapped. I funded it myself, and so with that, I just as a reminder again, I got the pink slip from that .com experience, not millions of dollars. So I did not have a great amount of money to invest into this idea. So it completely has been a bootstrapped startup. It's the longest startup probably one could ever imagine. And it has all grown organically through just online, people finding it online, as well as word of mouth, and working the media. The media and the press were definitely in my court and were huge fans right off from the get-go, and that really helped. So it took us from being, when I say us, it's kind of the royal us because it was just me at the time. And we're still a small company, by the way. I'm still the only full-time employee. My other folks are all contractor, part-time based, work from their own homes, that kind of thing. So people think we're much larger than we are. We're not huge, and we like to keep it that way. We get a lot done. And so it grew, launched in January 2004 with a little soft launch and got word out to 20, 25 different newspapers on the West Coast, and crickets chirped and didn't hear from anybody. And then March, suddenly, out of nowhere, there was a little blurb. Someone from that press release got it to Outside Magazine. Outside Magazine did a little blurb in March. By May, we were picked up by the AP, and we were suddenly in 200 newspapers across the globe. And at that point, then I couldn't fulfill. I didn't have enough mentors to fulfill the demand, and they were all in Oregon, and not everyone wanted to come to Oregon, and so that's where I had to dedicate myself to it, and I quit my job in the wine industry and dedicated full time then, starting in the spring of 2004.
So when you talk about media and PR being sort of a cornerstone of your strategy or what has propelled you to the success that you've had, can you talk a little bit more about, how you presented that idea to the media? I can see why they would pick up on it. I mean, just the sheer visuals of some of these great experiences you're providing are, would make any producer drool. But I mean, how did you approach it? Can you talk a little bit about tactics and strategy as far as media outreach?
Yeah, it really was. Well, first of all, it was an education process. We had to educate the media early on, and I would not recommend, media as your engine forever when it comes to marketing. But it was great for us to launch. Absolutely, we were unique. We were different. We were the only ones doing it, and still are. And so the approach was education. The first take from the media was, "Oh, this is Fantasy Island, and you're Mr. Rourke." Like, no, that's not it. You don't get it. This is career mentorship. This is, yes, it does have vacation in the name, and that's meaning that you have this career mentorship on an otherwise traditional vacation that you're taking from your stuck in the rut corner office or cubicle job. And so I will say, would I name it Vocation Vacations today? Probably not, quite honestly, but I've built out a brand around it and all that, because it took a long time to educate people that this isn't some quirky thing. This is brass tacks, folks. This is the real deal.
That's an interesting conundrum, though, because if you hadn't named it Vocation Vacations, do you think people like the Today Show would have picked you up at all?
That's a good point. That's a great point. I don't know. And you're right. careermentorship.com. Yeah, not as sexy, is it?
No, I'm not sure. I mean, you're a charming guy, but Vocation Vacations gets you in the door.
It's catchy. I like it.
I agree.
It was a stroke of genius.
Right. So, but beyond that, it has been targeting the consumer. We've done a great job of partnering with some large companies to get exposure. We've partnered with Ameriprise, Hilton Hotels, Monster, American Express, and that has, and that's where when I say that there's really not been much marketing per se. I mean, that's the extent of what we've done. I mean, we don't have an ad we don't have budgets for an ad campaign or anything like that. So instead, we go direct to companies, organizations. I also work directly with alumni associations, university alumni associations. So we're really targeting, going right to the people who are going to have most interest in what we have to offer.
So you have a marketing director. Is that primarily what she does? Is really just trying to set up those relationships and build it
Right.
through a
She's
networking, I guess.
Yeah, and when I say marketing director again, I mean all my folks are very part time. And it's summer, and so there's not as much happening, and she has kids, and so it is. We're kind of a unique little company where we're able to get a lot done, and we do it in a very smart manner. So,
Yeah.
I don't want to send out the false impression that, we have some fancy offices and there's the marketing director in the corner office with views of Mount Hood. That's not what it is. In fact, Jen is out in New York. We're virtual. Jen's in New York. Lisa is in Texas. In fact, Lisa is, as we speak, in an RV exploring national parks for a couple months and literally running things virtually. And then the rest of us are here in Portland.
Interesting. What are some of the common attributes, if any, Brian, that you see with the people who come to you, or do you think it's really just the I mean, is there sort of like a personality profile that says,
Yeah.
yes, this is a very restless person?
There is, actually. There are two types of people on the most part. There is the person who's stuck in a rut and who is burned out and but has the fire in the belly. They have not lost hope. They have hope. They have curiosity. They want to learn. They are positive thinking. That's a bulk of our business. But the other type of person is someone who's just doing it for fun. We actually get a lot of folks, especially this time of year, where they're taking a vacation as a gift. And it was gifted to them by a loved one, and it's just for fun. We also have some intervention gifts where people are saying, I'm so tired of my sister complaining about her job that we all teamed up together for her birthday.
That is such a
That's
great
awesome.
gift. Oh, I love that idea.
Yeah, so we have intervention gift giving, which we love, but a lot of the gift giving is, Father's Day and birthdays and anniversaries, and those gifts are generally areas like winemaker, brewmaster, sports announcer, voiceover artist, fashion, some things where people may not necessarily ever plan to go into that career, but it's the path not taken for a couple of days, and people really enjoy it. So, again, going back to the common denominator is people who want to learn, they're engaging, and they're curious. Curious is the adjective that I use most.
Did you ever see that when you were starting the organization? Did you ever envision that people would actually be gifting your service?
That's a great question.
So
no,
cool.
I did not. It was never part of my huge 1.5-page business plan, and never imagined. But guess what? The very first vacation ever sold was a gift from a woman to her husband, and it was a brewmaster package.
Oh, that's cool.
So let's talk a little bit about where you're getting the word out. We talked about using the media. How did you when the phone starts to ring and you get people like you get organizations like the New York Times and ABC News and the Wall Street Journal and Fox and the litany of major media outlets that have wanted to talk to you. Did you have any practical media experience prior to this sort of flood of media inquiries, and how did you get yourself ready?
Yeah, none whatsoever. And I've actually never done any media training. I'm not opposed to doing some, but I've never done any. But I've had my first press media person on board was my old boss from Ameritech in Chicago, who, just as I was launching Vacation, she was starting her public relations firm in Fort Worth, Texas, and it worked. And so she and I teamed up, and so she had the front end savvy, and then all I had to do was talk on the radio show or be interviewed on TV or do a phone interview for a print article or what have you. And it really worked. And as she increased her savviness, so did I. And so it really, now, have there been tips along the way from people? Absolutely. And have I reached out and asked people, what do you think? How should I handle this? Absolutely. but I've never done a formalized media training in any way. And now Diane Haynes, who handles our press and media, she's here in Portland, and she's the former vice president of PR for U.S. Bank. And I pulled her out of retirement to come on board. And as my old boss's business was growing down in Fort Worth, she couldn't dedicate as much time to vacations, and so we transitioned it 3 years ago now from Kelly to Diane, and Diane's just been wonderful. And so, and we do, quite honestly, and I don't mean this to be conceited in any way, we don't do a lot of proactive media at this point, at this juncture, because, we've kind of tapped it. We've kind of milked it. Mm-hmm. But the reactive, Diane handles, whenever someone in the press and media comes to us. And instead, we're really focusing more on the partnerships that I talked about, the corporate partnerships and the and university alumni associations and things like that. And really, with me doing a lot of speaking across the country. So, and the advantage there is we now own the process. Whereas, as you know, in the media, it's great. Don't get me wrong, it's fantastic. But you don't own the schedule. You don't know if and when it's really going to run. Whereas, if I'm giving a speech, I know that I'm going to be giving a speech. If we're partnering with Monster, we know that we're going to be partnering with Monster, and the launch date is, August 1st or whatever.
That seems to be, given the folks who come on, our show certainly, the nature of things to come. It's this idea of engagement marketing, of really owning your own story, and it sounds like that's the direction that Vocation Vacation certainly has always been taking, of really telling your story. How do you use your own, for lack of a better word, this seems so corporate, but your own assets in telling your story, your own vocationers? Do you have, are we, do you see a lot of folks who actually go out and become cheesemongers and winemakers?
Oh, yeah.
How do you use those?
I'm really excited that, two-part answer to your question there. First of all, I still to this day tell people, my personal story when and if appropriate, in terms of just letting them know that, hey, I've been there. I know what you're feeling. I've now done the corporate thing, and it's not corporate bashing. My gosh, we constantly work with people, corporates, with our partnerships. So it's not that at all. It's just that it's really helping people plan for their future. It could be the future, especially in the last 2 years, could be tomorrow because of the layoffs. I'm employed today, but that could change tomorrow. In a good economy, as we had, 3-4 years ago, people were thinking, I'm not looking, I'm okay. I'm just thinking more 5, even 10 years out. That's fantastic. And so, I definitely incorporate my own personal transition and reinvention. And it becomes part of the whole, persona of the company, basically. And but in terms of the other career transition stories of our clients, it's phenomenal. And we actually don't have the number right now as of how many, but it's for sure hundreds, if not thousands, and of people who have made a major career transition or are in process of doing it. They're writing their business plan. They're back in school. They've quit their job, what have you, or they've launched their new business, or they're now working in their dream career, completely separate career from what they were doing when they took their vacation. And a lot of those career transition stories, we're loading them up out on our website. And it's just exciting, as all you can imagine, to load these up and see these transition stories, with the person's photo. And where I was heading with this is, in order to really better understand what have we accomplished in really the last 4 years, because the first couple of years was a lot about education, and the vocationers came on board, but really the last 4 years have been the big push. And we're doing a study with the top industrial and organizational psychology departments at Michigan State and University of South Florida. I've asked them to collaborate. They said yes. And so they're tapping into our database of thousands of vocationer alumni to find out what motivated them to take the vacation, what fears did they face, what obstacles, where are they now, kind of like the VH1 show, where are they now, and to really then quantify and qualify our vocationer alumni database. And so that we'll have more on that later this year, and I'm so excited about that.
That sounds like another book in the making.
Well, it might be.
That's fascinating.
I don't know yet, but it's definitely to put some numbers to all of this is really important, and we'll never hit 80, 90, 100%. I'll be very happy at 50%. When you think about it, if 50% of the people make a major change in their life after having a 2-day experience, I mean, that's huge.
That's really significant, sure. You talk about that you and your staff of volunteers are really the boots on the ground communications people for the company. How does that scale? I mean, when you think about Vacations as a company in 5 years, what does that look like? What does your communication process look like with the public? Is it more of the same? Are you still able to do it?
Well, first of all, they're not volunteers. No one is a volunteer.
No, I shouldn't say that. Part-time, that's what I meant to say.
Yeah, part-time. But they are paid, as are our career coaches that are affiliated with us, as are all of our mentors are paid. So everyone gets paid, and hence that's what drives, our pricing, obviously. So, we do get that critique from time to time. We're not a not-for-profit. There are some folks in this world who would like us to be a nonprofit, but that's not who we are. So where we're heading, there are really four areas to the business. First of all, the parent company is Brian Kurth and Company. And so Vacations is basically, it exemplifies step number 5 of the 8-step process. So if you go to briankurth.com, you'll see an 8-step career transition process. And that's the career consulting side of the business. And that's a major piece of what we do. So there's career consultation based on the 8 steps to a career change. Step number 4 being find, recruit a mentor, which we help our clients do. It's basically create your own mentorship. Step number 5 is test drive your dream job. Some of the Brian Kurth and Company clients will take a vacation, but most don't. We end up working with them to create their own because it's cheaper. And they have the time, especially if they've been laid off. They can create their own, and they can do it in the city in which they want to be. So there's Brian Kurth and Company career consultation. There's Vacations. And then I'm doing a lot of speaking across America. So that's another revenue channel. And then the fourth, which is more of a dotted line, is the book. And by that, I mean, not a surprise to anyone listening that, unless you're Stephen King, you don't make money on a book. You make an advance, and you're lucky to get an advance these days. And my book came out 2.5 years ago, so I've already seen that advance and spent it a long time ago. But now the book is basically it's a marketing arm for the business.
And I'm just curious, Brian, when maybe it's a little off topic from where we're going, but I've just looked through some of these really, really interesting career choices, especially pro wrestling. I think you got like 5 of those. But when somebody signs up for that, now they're on their own for, I'm just assuming here, like travel and hotel and all that kind of stuff, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we the vacation includes the direct mentorship with the mentor, and then it also includes a pre and a post vacation career consultation, either with me or one of our 20 career coaches across the country that we're affiliated with.
And tell me about that part. How did you come up with that, a pre and post? I mean, is that just to sort of, that's not to help them decide where they're going.
Within 6 months of launching the business, I realized, okay, there's a need here for, first, it's also a quality assurance piece of things for us, but it's also, more importantly, it's really beneficial for the client to get their thoughts in order. So we help them get prepared. And that information before the vacation is then emailed to the mentor so that they know a little bit more, well, who is this coming from Chicago or LA or wherever? And what do they want to get out of this experience? And then the post-vacation discussion is really all for the vacationer. It's all about next steps, action planning, and really career development. How are you going to make this transition and reinvention work? And it's at that point that some of them then say, okay, I've now had the taste. Now I need help getting there, and then they'll hire us as career consultants then to lead them down that path and help them further to make that transition.
And this is kind of a random question, but has anybody ever come to you and said, man, I've been haunted my entire life by this career survey I did in the 8th grade that said, I should be like a garbage truck driver or something, and I've always wondered. Can you hook me up with that?
Well, we don't do one-offs. So no, if we don't offer it, we will listen to that. We certainly listen to client intake and to what they're looking for, and that's how we've grown historically. But it's not in our business model that we're going to drop everything and go find that type of mentor.
Does that ever come up, though?
It sounds like you're projecting a little bit, Dane.
Yeah, a little bit.
Haunted by the garbage truck thing?
Well, that's where it most definitely does, and that's where we'll say vacations isn't the answer for you. It's the career consultation piece will help you create your own.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's where Brian Kurth and company come in. So we'll direct you then to briankurth.com versus vacations because there's not enough customer demand for X, Y, and Z, or we simply can't do it. It might have too much liability. You want to be a police officer, or you want to be community relations for the fire department, but we can't do that either because we are a for-profit business and we can't profit off from the taxpayer, which is paying the services of that fire chief and what have you. But as a taxpayer, you as an individual could go out and create your own career mentorship with your own police department or fire department, using that as an example. So that's where we help you through that process with Brian Kurth and company versus Vacations. Vacations is plug and play for those who fit within the the 185 different vocation types that we offer today. But for those who don't, we're still there for you. But we're going to help you create your own.
Well,
and if you don't want to do that, then you read the book and you really do it yourself.
Okay. Well, because it makes sense that, when we're dealing with adults, there's sort of, they're going to sort of do a career search, see what's available, or, have something in mind. But I just was a little curious if people do kind of come and say, man, I don't know what I want to do. Can we talk about that?
Well, that's
I just know I'm not happy.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's the career consultation piece.
Yes.
That's where
right.
Step number one of that is absolutely the figuring out what your passions are. And we work with some assessments. We don't do a lot of it. In fact, we rarely do the Myers-Briggs or the Strong or anything like that.
Okay.
We do work with Marcus Buckingham and Donald Clifton in terms of with the Now Discover Your Strengths, which is a great tool of the Strength Finder 2.0.
And that's, I think, one of the really the lessons out of this is the fact that there is a model, there's a system that you have built around kind of this jewel of vacations, but it's a much bigger system, and I think I think it's a fascinating and scalable path that you've created here, and it's as absolutely predicted. I think we could talk about this for much longer. But we're running to the end of our time here. I just want to say, our deepest thanks for joining us and teaching us a little bit about vacations and the way you communicate to the masses.
Well, I really appreciate it, and it was great. Thanks so much for having me on.
Now, Brian, before we let you go, where, we've already talked about vacations.com, briankurth.com, that's Kurth. Any place else you would like people to follow you to find out what you're up to?
Well, I'm also out on Facebook and Twitter, so definitely join the social media side of things as well with me.
Perfect. And you can look for all of those things on briankurth.com and Vacations. Definitely check out those testimonials, people. They're wonderful. It's just it's really empowering to read what people are doing with their lives as a result of these little vocations. Thanks so much, Brian. We appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you.
I like that Brian Kurth. I like him. I'm glad he joined us on the show. Do you guys like him? Did you like?
You were going
him?
for a green eggs and ham thing there, Pete. Keep with
No,
that. I like that, Brian.
He was great. He was
Brian
great,
Kurth,
you guys. I mean, he just. I love the way that he's organically built this business. I just think it's a great concept, and I could see, as I said to him on the show, I could see how people would pick up on it. I mean, just the the pure visuals
Yeah.
of it is cool.
It's a great story. And
It
you
is
know
a
what?
great story.
I love any I guess any entrepreneur who just sort of sees a need. You know, I always love that story where somebody says, you know, I thought, hey, somebody's got to do this, and then I found out nobody did. So
Yeah,
that's
it's the hair
great.
club for men thing, you know. I mean, it's you like it so much you feel like this is a service I need. I'm gonna do this myself.
Did you just
And that's-
compare vocation vacations?
Yeah, I think you're
I do.
pulling it.
Men?
No,
You're pulling a Dane
I'm
there,
totally
Pete.
pulling a Dane. Am I pulling a Dane? No, you know, I liked it so much I bought the company. Like there's a relationship there. Come on.
Wow,
That
the loosest of relationships.
wasn't completely
We're sorry,
Dane,
Brian.
was it?
We're sorry. We really enjoyed having you on the show.
No, hey, you know, I really like the I like the whole system approach that he's brought about, and I think it's one of those things when you investigate, you know, when you have the opportunity to sit down and have a conversation about what the business looks like and the background of the business and how it works, and you see that, you know, as organic as he says, you know, he tosses it off sort of humbly that no, it was very organic, and we have no, you know, we had a one-page marketing plan, we have no marketing budget, and yet, you know, there's clearly been a lot of critical thought over the last, you know, 6 years as this business has developed into how he can really help people who are struggling in some way, shape, or another. And I think that's you know, that's what a great time for that kind of a business to exist.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about tools. And you know, this is an awesome week because it's Dane's turn to own the tools.
Dane's
and
tool week.
I know. I mean, I heard about this story. I did not think that it was related. And Dane,
No, you didn't think it mattered.
I didn't.
That's what to say.
No, it matters.
Okay.
But I didn't think it related, and I want to hear.
Well, the
Why
reason
should
you didn't think
Why should I care for this show?
right? Why should you care? What I wanted to talk about briefly, I think, is Flickr, bigger, wider, and uncut. Speaking of tools,
Bigify?
Embiggened.
They've
They've
embiggened the
embiggened.
images. Yeah. So yeah, Flickr doesn't change their interface terribly often, and I don't. You know, I think the question. So Pete, why you think maybe it perhaps does it really matter? As who uses Flickr anymore other than photographers? You had mentioned
80 million people. I think they said they've got 80 million people using Flickr regularly.
And it would be, I think, an interesting discussion for another time to sort of talk a little bit more about, you know, what is Flickr outside of a place for photographers, you know, to post great images, because it was one of the earlier kind of, you know, social media sites, really, in a way, for people, I think, before Facebook gained a lot of traction, to share a part of their lives visually with people. So So it's interesting, a little bit at least, that Flickr has really kind of, they're getting some great reviews for this new interface, and the image quality improvement. It's like a 640 megapixel width now for your main image, and better slide transitions. And honestly, Flickr was a little clunky, I think. They hadn't made any major enhancements for quite some time. The last time I was in there, I felt, you know, or anytime I go in there, it's a little bit clunky-ish. Some people are great users of it, and it's, you know, I think for some people it is sort of continues to be their way to really share their life, you know, with their friends or with the world.
Flickr's awesome. Are you on Flickr, or do you have the Flickr?
I'm on Flickr.
Are you? Are we friends?
I think you just friended me
All
recently.
right.
I think you're my only friend on Flickr.
I love the Flickr. I've got I don't know.
Well, you're a photographer, so of course you love
many. I did post my very first iPhone 4 picture on Flickr.
Geek.
Yes. I have been reviewed as safe by the Flickr staff, which is good.
Aw,
That's
you are
important. I'm
safe.
safe. Yeah, and warm. And so good tool, good talk. Thank you, Dane. And do we have anything else to talk about? Please say we don't. Happy iPhone 4 day, everybody. Megan, if people wanted to, let's say, embiggen their understanding of you and your world, where would you suggest they research?
They can find me at Megan Strand on the Twitter, or at Encouraged, which is INCOURAGED.com.
And Dane Christensen.
Strike10media.com, please. Thank you very much.
What are we going to do to get you to tweet more? It's starting to bug me a little bit.
Every show.
I guess let's have an intervention.
Yeah, we need to have a Twitter.
I watched that the other night on AMC. So
let's not go there.
It's trouble.
me into the room. It is trouble. Sorry. No, we have nothing more to talk about.
All right. Well, I'm at Pete Wright on the Twitter, and I'm at fifthandmain.com. You can learn more about this very show by heading over to thenakedmarketers.com. Find us on Twitter at Naked Markets, and make sure to click on that handy subscribe in iTunes button on the site to get us in the iTunes store for free and subscribe, because that's the best way. Who are we kidding? To get the show every single week without missing an episode. Unless, of course, we skip an episode. Which would be, is probably for your own safety. And so on behalf of Megan Strand and Dane Christensen, I'm Pete Wright, and this has been The Naked Marketers.
Bye, folks.
Peace out.